I'm Linda van Tolberg for BizNews. Arnie Witkin has had a career as an investment manager and in private equity. Since retiring, he's been a speechwriter, executive coach, and mentor. His book, It's Not a Big Thing in Life, is a common sense guide on managing life's trials and tribulations. The Western Cape Education Department has made the book part of their curriculum for life orientation. And today we have Arnie in the BizNews studio with us to discuss his book and his life philosophy. Hi, Arnie. Welcome to BizNews.
Thank you very much, Linda.
Well, can you share your background and explain how it led you to write this It's Not a Big Thing in Life?
Yeah, well, my background is I qualified as an accountant in 1966. I lived in London for 2 years. I was the accountant of the Playboy Club. I came back to Johannesburg. I was a stockbroker for 6 years. I was the investment manager of the Legal and General Insurance Company for another 7 years. And in 1982, I started New Bonica, which was the first private equity company in South Africa. In 1989, we emigrated to England, but I couldn't get anything going. So in 1994, I came back to do business in South Africa with another private equity company. And then in 2001, I got cancer. I couldn't speak for 3 years. And in 2004, I retired. And after an operation, I got my voice back so I could become a speechwriter and teach people how to speak in public.
That sounds a fascinating career. So, how did it get to writing this book, The Big Things in Life?
For 70 to 60 years odd, I've been writing down my thoughts. One day I looked at this enormous file, decided I'd put them into a Word document, which I headed Considerations for My Grandchildren. There were about 10 pages of bullet points. I showed it to a friend of mine's granddaughter who was going to university. I said, there might be some things here which are interesting. She came back, she said, this cannot be for your grandchildren. This has to be for the whole world. So I went about writing the book. I rewrote it 4 times. Of course, every time I wrote it, people said it's just a lot of bullet points. So I fleshed it out finally when it's a real book. And every one of the bullet points is illustrated by a story. And there's 65 different topics, which are strategies for coping with life.
Well, can you highlight some of those topics?
The number one message I want to get across is that you are totally responsible for yourself. You can have no expectations and demands of anybody. If something goes wrong, you've got to fix it. You can't blame your parents, you can't blame your children, your friends, the weather, the government, God. If something happens, once you've acknowledged the feeling, you've got one question. What am I going to do about it? What's my plan? Now, there's some things which are very, very huge in life where the decision is made for you. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about where you can function and actually make the decision. So, one of the principal characters in the book is Miss Havisham from Great Expectations. She was left at the altar, and the book takes place 30 years later, and she's still wearing the wedding dress. The wedding table is laid out. She never left that moment. Now, what I'm saying is, at some point in that 30-year cycle, you've got to say, what am I going to do? How am I going to put my life in order? 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, a year. It's a long time. A month, a week, a day, an hour, and a minute, a second. Now, a second is a very short space of time, but within a week or 2 weeks, you should be able to do something. And how you get to what you do is you write it down. The magical bullet for solving problems is to write them all down. You put down what the problem is, what your options are, what your resources are, and then you put down as many as you can. And I've found that every single time I've got a problem, from massive career decisions to what kind of party we should have for our 50th wedding anniversary, when you write it all down, the answer comes out like a pop-up book the kids get with trees and forests and princesses. It's a pillar of fire in a dark night, a pillar of cloud during the day. The answer appears. When you write down your problems, you go from anxiety to action. Because when it's in your head, what if this, what if that, cyberspace, you write it down, the answer becomes clear. You go from procrastination to progress. This is a major theme of my book, Strategies for Coping. Whatever the problem is, write it down, put in your options, who can help you, I'm responsible. That is the major theme in the book.
Well, can we just, because the whole philosophy is that the big things in life shouldn't matter so much. But what would you say to somebody who say that might be easy for you? You come out of a totally different background. What if I come from the townships? I don't have that many options. What would you say to them?
You start off with a status quo. I will sit at home and play video games all day. What other options have I got? Where can I find a job? Where can I look? Is there a government agency? Can I go back to my school and find out? Have I exhausted looking in publications online? There are always jobs. There's no such thing as nothing, Linda. Your action is your decision. So if you're in the townships, you need this even more because you may have fewer options, but you have options. And particularly in the Western Cape, where there's the unemployment is a lot less than the rest of the country. You go to friends, what skills have I got? Could I could I become could I do someone's garden? Could I do someone's hair? Could I become a Uber driver? Could I get a job with Pick and Pay? Could I go to university? Are there courses I could do? It's the people in the townships need it as much as anybody else.
Well, can we look at some of the issues you cover? What the impact that I think most people talk about the younger generation at the moment is social media. So, what would your take be on how do you cope with social media?
Well, social media is both a boon and if you spend too much time on it, it's a disaster. But you've got to want to do something different. So if you want to spend all your time on social media, take responsibility for that. And because you're responsible for yourself. So it's no use saying, I'm inundated with all this, because you can turn off your social media. But social media keeps you in contact. You've got friends on social media. I know I avoided social media because I didn't want to have that profile. But when I went on it, I really enjoyed it. So if you find yourself spending too much time, take responsibility. Don't blame social media. Use it for the benefits of social media.
And how important is humor as a coping strategy, especially in the South African context? We use humor a lot.
Humour is vitally important. I've got a whole chapter on a sense of humour. First of all, when you connect with people, you'll never laugh at the joke of someone you don't like. So when you connect and you make a joke, if the other person laughs, you've got an immediate connection. Now, if they don't laugh, it's still maybe okay, because the joke may not be funny. But I find that when you can laugh at yourself, and you can use self-deprecating humor, it's extremely powerful. The other thing is that personal view, one of the barometers of any relationship is how much you laugh together, um, about anything really. But when there's a humorless relationship, and it includes at work, by the way, then it's probably not a great relationship. So sense of humor is vital, as long as you never ever tell a racist joke, never ever humiliate anybody, even though it sounds funny. But if you've got humor is a juxtaposition of ideas which creates a thought out of the ordinary. When you do that and someone laughs, you've got a fantastic connection.
Well, Arnie, tell us of your connection with the Western Cape Education Department.
Yes, when I realized they had a subject called life orientation, I wrote to them. I said, my book may be interesting to you because the subheadings are strategies for coping, considerations of my adult grandchildren. So I thought, okay. So I wrote to them and I said, maybe this is something which you could use. And to my surprise, they said yes. Um, and I met with Ismail Taladia, the head of curriculum, extraordinarily professional, dedicated, passionate, and loved the book. A woman called Portia Smith, one of the heads of the languages, really thought it touched her particularly, um, said it was an essential part of her parenting journey. And they've distributed the book to all of their teachers. There's 6,000 teachers in the Western Cape. And they've created exercises from the book for the pupils to work on. So it's a working manual. So it gave me a huge amount of energy because, when you're nearly 80, Linda, there's a struggle for relevance. You can become invisible. So it was a tremendous fillip to my overall demeanor because now that they've distributed the books and I've had fantastic feedback where it's changed people's lives dramatically in some instances. One woman, she had conflict. My definition of conflict is when your body and your mind aren't in the same place. So her body was in a job, her mind was in opening up a health shop. So she wrote it down. She wrote down health job, she wrote down job, and she wrote down everything she could. And the answer, she said, came out, as I said, because it was clear that she wasn't an entrepreneur. So she decision, put my mind where my body is. My body's in the job. So she decided to focus on the job. Within 6 weeks, she got a massive promotion. Another one, a woman was in an abusive relationship that she couldn't get out of it. She wrote it down, stay, go. She said, became absolutely clear that she had, because I said, you're responsible for yourself. You can't blame the person you're in the relationship. If you're going to stay, then make the most of it. She excommunicated her mother after 40 years because her mother was abusive to her. So I've had this amazing feedback from so many people. One young guy says he keeps the book next to his bed. If he's got any problem at all, he refers to it. He calls it his Bible. I told him not to tell his priest.
So you've self-published the book. So if people want to read it, where do they get hold of it?
It's on Amazon, Kindle. Amazon Kindle's the best place. Or they can get a hard copy from Amazon.
And is that in South Africa and overseas?
In South Africa, they can get it on Kindle. They can also get it on Take-A-Lot here.
On Take-A-Lot as well. Well, Arnie Witkin, so interesting speaking to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Linda.